Hi everybody, this is Chris Congleton with Kentucky Transportation Cabinet CAD support in the developmental branch. Today we're going to be talking about how to import Lidar. In this demonstration I'm actually going to be using ORD to 2023 version 23.00.01.11. Some of the terminology that we're going to use today is we're going to use seed file. You need to know about the seed file that we're going to have to use a 3D seed file to import a proper terrain. We're also going to use the term terrain file. Terrain file and LiDAR often get used synonymously, but truly what we're actually getting, we're making a terrain out of the LiDAR, so they're actually not the same. We're also going to be talking about point clouds, the LiDAR tile, .laz, .pod, and .las files. In this particular example, we actually have to download an LAZ, convert it to a POD, and then we'll convert it to an LAS. So that'll all be explained, but unfortunately it's a bit of a cumbersome process, but it works well. And then we're also going to be talking about your surface boundary, contours, and triangles. These are things that you can actually see and look at when you've created your terrain. Key takeaways. We're going to be creating a 3D drawing. That's the biggest takeaway. You cannot start in a 2D drawing, which is how most people start when they create a drawing. We need to create a 3D drawing because we're creating a terrain, which is a 3D drawing. So next we're going to talk about importing and converting LiDAR. That's what I was talking about. I was talking about the LAZ, the POD, and the LAS. We're going to convert from different formats to other formats so that we can get the terrain that we want. And then lastly, we're going to talk about the terrain display, how we can modify how our terrain looks in our drawing. Terrain. Okay, with that, we will begin our example on how to import LiDAR and create a terrain. Okay, to import LiDAR, the first thing we're going to need to do is to go to Kentucky from above. So to do that, I'm going to use Microsoft Edge, and all I'm going to do is I'm simply going to type in KY from above. And that will actually pull this up. And luckily, it sections out this search, and you can actually go to LiDAR point cloud, Kentucky LiDAR point cloud. This allows us to go straight to what we need. I've also created a workflow for this, which actually sends the link directly to this page right here, which is actually, it shows up the grids of the point clouds. So I'm going to zoom in here. To a place where so I'm going to grab one of these grids in here near Mammoth Cave. I know we never build roads here, but it's just a random LiDAR that I'm going to use to show. So what we can do is we zoom into the grid that we want, wherever our project is going to be, and we click on that specific grid, and some information will pop up here. When that information pops up, we can scroll down. We see we've got a lot of information here, but if you see these areas where it says view, those are really what you're going to click on is the view hyperlinks. Now, when you click on those view hyperlinks, you don't want to select some of those hyperlinks. The ones that say, these that say phasebox URL, we don't want to use those. And you probably want to go down here as far as you can to the one that's closest to view. But like this phase 2 AWS URL, we can click on that one. And phasebox download, we can download that one. I've had some difficulty with these phase 2 box URLs. Personally, I would, if you can, use the AWS underscore URL views. So when we click on that, it's actually going to start downloading our LAZ file. Notice this is an LAZ file. So we're going to download the LAZ file. That's what we're getting from Kentucky from above. So just give it some time, and it will actually download to your computer. Mine's going to my downloads folder on my computer. It's a local thing. And it's recommended that you keep all your files on your local computer, as it works better to import terrains and whatnot. Okay, now that it's actually downloaded to my computer, I'm going to open up my downloads folder. Looks like we have an unconfirmed download there, which is a little strange. But this is the file that I downloaded. So I'm going to copy and paste that, or cut and paste it. I'm going to paste it in my user folder. So I'm going to bring this over here and I'm going to open up my user folder. You can put it wherever you want. In this particular case, I'm putting it into the folder that I'm using to pull from for this example. Paste it in my Lidar files. You notice that I've marked it as Lidar files. So I'm going to paste it here, and this is where I'll put all my files, my converted files and whatnot, as well as my terrain. You can do it however you want it, but I would, again, store all these files on your local drive. So we'll close that out, and we'll close this out as well. Okay, so what we want to do now is we want to create a terrain file, a place to import our LiDAR and create the terrain from it. So what we do is we go to File, and we go to New. That's going to pull up this document creation wizard, select No, and click OK. In this first new file window, this is for ProjectWise. You want to save this on your hard drive. So I'm going to click Cancel, which will take me to a new window that will actually allow me to save it on my hard drive. Okay, so this pulls me up to where I want to save my file. I've actually got it set up on my hard drive, and I'm going to save it as terrain. But I also want to change the seed file. Right now it's set up as a 2D seed file, so I need to click Browse. Again, it's trying to go into ProjectWise. I don't want to get my seed file from ProjectWise, so I'm going to hit Cancel, and it's going to take me to my C drive and my standards in my C drive, and I'm going to click on ORD 3D, not Structures 3D. That's a completely different 3D file. We want to click on ORD 3D seed file, and then click Open. Okay, so this is set up as 3D. It's going to name it as Terrain, and I'm going to click Save. Okay, so now I've actually saved my drawing as terrain as a 3D seed file. Now that I've done that, what we can do is we can actually begin to import our downloaded LAZ file. So we want to be in Open Roads Modeling Workflow. We want to be in the Home tab, and we want to go to Attach Tools, and we want to click on Point Clouds. So once we do that, this point cloud window will pull up, and we're going to go File, Attach. So we're going to be drilling down to the file where we saved our files. In this case, it's my LiDAR files. You might actually have to change this to LAZ so that it will show. So you need to pick this drop down and make sure it says LAZ so it will show your LAZ. You want to select the LAZ that you downloaded and open it. You want to make sure all this is correct here. So in this particular instant, all of this is correct. We want yes for attach, yes for import RGB, import intensities yes, normalize intensities yes, compression is automatic, spatial filtering is disabled, and spatial spacing, that's something you can't even change. But specifically, we need to make sure we are in US survey feet. And then click OK. No wizard, click OK. Again, it's asking us to save it to ProjectWise. We don't want to save it from ProjectWise. We'll hit Cancel. And I'm going to save it back to my LiDAR file. Notice it's saving as a pod file this time. So it's actually pulling it in and converting it to a pod file. So we're going to click Save. Give it a little time and it'll do its magic. Don't click any here at this point. It's loading up. Okay, it's finally loaded up. So first thing we want to do, even though it's loaded up, we want to make sure it's in the right geocoordinate system. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to right click after I've selected it, and I want to go to GeoCS and then select from library. Now I actually have favorites set up, so we can actually see you want to select Kentucky 83F, NAD83, Kentucky Single Zone, SPCS, US Feet, FIPS 1600. That is the one that you want to select. If you don't have this in your favorites, It's actually in projected North America, United States of America, Kentucky. Keep drilling down. Spread this out a little bit, and you just want to look for it. I believe this is it. This is it right here. So you can also select it from there if it's not showing up in your favorites. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I'm going to select that on my favorites. I'm going to select OK. Okay, now we know that we have the correct geospatial geocoordinate system. I'm going to move this off to the side, and I want to hit make sure it's actually loading up, and it is. So this is our pod file. This is a pod file. You cannot use a pod file to create a terrain. So what we need to do now, I'll bring this window back over. What we need to do now is we actually need to convert it or export it as an LAS. So we're going to select our pod file. We're going to file and export. And we want to make sure all this information is right too. And in this case, all of our information is correct. Make sure we're still on US survey feet, which we are. Density 100, that sounds right. All and include an intensity classification and an LAS 1.2.LAS. That works. Everything is good on this. So if you're seeing this, you're good. Click OK. Again, we're going to say no wizard. Click OK again. And again, we're going to cancel because we don't want to save in ProjectWise. So I'm going to cancel, and I'm going to save it as an LAS to my LiDAR files, just like I did before. So I'm going to click Save. Just give it time. Don't touch anything. Don't click. Okay, so it's saved. Now what we want to do is we need to get rid of our pod file. Right now we're seeing our pod file in our drawing. We don't want to see that. So we're going to detach the pod file. So you select the pod file in your point cloud window, and you go File, Detach. That gets rid of it. And then we're going to close this out. Next, what we're going to do is we want to still be in Open Roads Modeling Workflow. We want to go to the Terrain tab now. And we want to click on From File. Okay, so I've drilled down to my LiDAR files. So this is where you're going to look for that LAS that we actually just created. So we'll go to our LiDAR files, make sure this is selecting LAS. If it's not, you will probably pick up. So LAS and LAZ, it's easy to confuse them. I've done it. So just make sure it's an LAS file. So we'll select the LAS and we'll select Done. Now I'm going to say, as soon as you select Done, it takes it a while to upload it. This is a big file. So just be patient. Let it do its thing. Don't double click, because especially in ORD, things can go wrong when you do this. So I'm going to select Done and just be very patient. So be very patient here. And a window will pop up, an import terrain model window will pop up when it's completed uploading it to ORD to allow us to make some selections for what we want in our terrain file. Again, be patient. My wheel is still spinning, just let it spin. There we go. So it's done. So what I want to do is I only want the ground. I don't want any low points or unclassified, so I'm going to deselect those two, and I want the ground. And then we need to make sure that all this information over here is correct. So our Kentucky 83F is correct. We're in an NAD SBCUS single zone, which should also say 1600 at the end, and it does. We're in target units of foot, which is what we want. You can actually select different kinds of feature definitions for your terrain. You've got these show contours and triangles, and depending on what your wants and desires, you can select those or play around with those however you see fit. For this example, typically we use existing boundary 20 scale or existing boundary 50 scale. In this case, I'm going to just use the existing terrain boundary 50 scale. So I'm going to select that, and our 10 is what we want for our filter, with 0.500 as our tolerance, and granularity, that's a hard one to say, of course. And this leave reinsert points blank. Import terrain only is all we want, and source of none is fine. And source units of US survey feet. Again, that's very, very important. We've had US survey feet all the way through this. If that gets changed in the beginning, a lot of bad things can go wrong. You can be off, and it's very confusing, and you basically just have to redo your terrain again. Okay, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and import. Again, once you click, just be patient. So you got to be patient. It's going to load up. Let's give it some time. And the strange thing about this is nothing happens other than this processing window disappears. So it looks like you've done nothing when really it's imported. So again, be patient. These are big files. They take a while to upload. Okay, so it looks like it just quit. It hasn't quit. It's completed, which is a little unusual, but you notice that the ground is unselected now. So it's been downloaded. We're going to close this, and look, we have a terrain boundary here. So that's a good thing. First thing we want to do once we have a terrain boundary. And also, if you don't see this for some reason, you didn't zoom fit when you had your POD file. If you don't see this, just hit the fit view button and it will actually zoom into your terrain boundary. So once we have that, we want to go into our element selection. We want to select the boundary, offset, and then have our pop-up. And we want to make sure that this is set as our active terrain model. So I'm going to set it as our active terrain model. Then I'm going to actually go into our properties and we can change things. So we can actually show some stuff. We can show our major contours. Let's turn them on. Select again. Click on properties. Let's turn on our minor contours. All right, there's our minor contours. So let's go and turn those off. Turn it off. Turn that off. Let's look at triangles. Click on. Okay, so we have our triangles. And you can keep going through this, especially in areas where there's break lines. You can turn on and off the boundary. I don't suggest you turn off the boundary because if you turn off any of your other features, it's hard to find out where the location of your terrain. So I'd always leave your boundary on. You can also find holes, voids, features. I've never used these before, but there might be issues where you need to use those. Typically, it's minor and major contours that I use as well as triangles. Flow arrows you can turn on and off. Anyhow, long story short, let's take a look at it from a 3D perspective. So we click on our view rotation button. We select the point on one of our triangles, and I'll just pull over our rotate view icon. I have this on dynamic method. So as I rotate it, we can see I'm looking at mountains and valleys, and I'm sure this is a creek, and this is coming in very, very nicely. So to take it back to where we want, we can click on top view and it'll take it back to top view. We click fit view and it takes it back to fit view. And my opinion is that you should, whenever you're creating a terrain, you should select it and take off the triangles when you save it. So I turn off the triangles, but I keep the boundary so I know where it is, because you can always change those options when you've referenced it into one of your drawings. And this makes it a lot easier to load and unload because it doesn't have to pull everything in. So you want to file it and you want to save it, and now you have your terrain. So I hope that everybody learned everything they needed to know to import Lidar and create a terrain. If you have any questions, let me know. Okay, well, I hope everybody learned something from importing LiDAR and creating a terrain. If you have any questions or comments, please feel free to contact us at CAD Support. If you go to the CAD Support webpage by typing in KYTC CAD Support in your search bar on any search engine, it should be able to pull this up for you, and you can actually click on this hyperlink or this hyperlink, and you can send in a technical support form. It's very important that you enter your name. Please enter your email address and the area of issue so it gets to the right person that can help you. Again, I hope everybody had a good time, and I hope you learned something. Again, if you have any questions, send us a support form, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible.